My name is Ethan Moore, and I'm 37 years old. My wife, Lily, is 34. We've been married for 12 years, and like most marriages, ours has had its share of ups and downs. But nothing could have prepared me for the conversation that flipped my world upside down. It started on an ordinary Wednesday night. We were finishing dinner, the TV was playing softly in the background, and Lily was unusually quiet. Normally, she'd be telling me about her day or the latest drama at her office, but tonight, she was distant. "Ethan, can we talk?" she finally said, her voice hesitant. The way she said it made my stomach churn. My first thought was that she was about to tell me something terrible. Maybe she'd lost her job or, worse, had been hiding some kind of bad news. "Sure," I said cautiously, putting down my fork. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her glass. "I've been thinking about us," she began. "Us?" I asked, my voice tightening. "Yeah," she said softly. "I feel like we've gotten stuck." Stuck. That word lingered in the air like a bad smell. "What do you mean by stuck?" I asked. "I mean, we're comfortable, Ethan," she said. "Too comfortable. It's like we've fallen into this routine, and I feel like we're just going through the motions. Do you ever feel that way?" I didn't know how to answer. Sure, we'd fallen into a routine. Work, dinner, TV, bed, repeat. But isn't that what happens after a decade of marriage? "I think we're just settled," I said finally. "Isn't that normal?" "Maybe," she admitted, "but I feel like we're losing the spark. I want to feel excited again. I want to feel alive." Her words stung more than I cared to admit. "So, what are you saying?" "I've been reading about ways to rejuvenate a marriage," she said cautiously. The pit in my stomach grew. "Okay," I said warily. "What kind of ways?" She hesitated again, and I could tell she was carefully choosing her words. "I think we should try an open marriage. Just for a couple of weeks. To see if it brings back some excitement." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. An open marriage? From Lily? "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Yes," she said, meeting my gaze. "I've done a lot of thinking about this, Ethan. I'm not saying I want to replace what we have. I love you. But maybe a little freedom would help us rediscover that spark." The room fell silent. My thoughts were a chaotic mess, and I couldn't find the words to respond. "Look, it's just an idea," she said quickly, trying to fill the void. "It doesn't have to mean anything big. Just exploring. Seeing what's out there." I stared at her, struggling to process what she was saying. "And what if one of us finds something, or someone, that we don't want to give up?" "That's not going to happen," she said confidently. "This isn't about replacing each other. It's about growing together." Her words felt hollow, but I didn't have the energy to argue. "I need time to think about this," I said finally. "Of course," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Take all the time you need." For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. Was she unhappy with me? Was this her way of telling me she wanted to be with someone else? Or was she genuinely trying to save our marriage? I thought back over the past few months, replaying every interaction we'd had. There were no obvious signs of trouble. No fights, no accusations, no cold shoulders. But now that I looked closer, there were small things. The way she'd started spending more time on her phone, the new clothes she'd bought, just because, the sudden interest in fitness classes she'd never cared about before. It all added up to one conclusion. Lily wasn't just thinking about an open marriage. She already had someone in mind. That weekend, I told her I'd think about her proposal, but only if we had clear boundaries. "No hiding anything," I said. "If we're doing this, we're honest about everything." "Of course," she agreed, her face lighting up. "And it's temporary," I added. 2 weeks. That's it." 2 weeks, she repeated, nodding. With that, we had an agreement. And just like that, Lily seemed lighter, happier. She started going out more, claiming she was reconnecting with old friends. But I wasn't blind. I knew what she was doing, and I wasn't about to sit back and let her rewrite the rules of our marriage without consequences. If Lily wanted to play this game, I'd play too. But I wasn't going to do it her way. I started small, casually reconnecting with people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old coworkers, college friends, and yes, even Lily's younger sister, Claire. Claire and I had always gotten along well. She was 3 years younger than Lily and had a sharp wit that made every conversation entertaining. I sent her a quick text one evening, just to say hello. To my surprise, she responded almost immediately. "Hey, Ethan. Long time no talk. How are you?" Over the next few days, Claire and I exchanged texts more frequently. At first, it was just small talk, work, hobbies, family updates. But as we talked more, I started to notice something. Claire was easier to talk to than Lily had been in years. She listened without interrupting, laughed at my jokes, and shared stories about her own life with an openness that felt refreshing. And I knew Lily noticed. Whenever my phone buzzed with a new message, Lily's eyes would dart to the screen. She didn't say anything at first, but I could tell it was eating at her. One evening, as I was replying to one of Claire's texts, Lily finally broke her silence. "Who are you texting so much?" she asked, trying to sound casual but failing. "Claire," I said honestly. "Claire," she repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Yeah," I said, not looking up. "She's been checking in. It's been nice catching up." Lily didn't say anything, but the tension in the room was palpable. It didn't take long for Lily's discomfort to bubble over. The following week, she cornered me in the kitchen, her arms crossed and her jaw tight. "Why are you texting Claire so much?" she demanded. I raised an eyebrow. "I thought we agreed this was about exploring, Lily. Isn't that what you wanted?" Her face turned red, but she didn't respond. I couldn't help but smirk. The game was just getting started. The tension between Lily and me grew over the next several days. She didn't directly confront me about my growing connection with Claire again, but I could see the unease in her every move. It was in the way she lingered around when I was on my phone, the way her casual questions felt more like attempts to pry, and the way her forced smiles never quite reached her eyes. And to be honest, it was exactly what I expected. Lily had pushed for an open marriage thinking she'd have all the control, thinking I'd be too timid or too attached to take advantage of it. But now, for the first time, she was realizing she didn't have the upper hand. My conversations with Claire were entirely above board. There was nothing inappropriate about them, nothing that could be twisted into accusations of crossing any boundaries. But they were frequent, and they were meaningful. We talked about everything: her career struggles, her recent breakup, her plans for the future. She asked about me too, about how I was handling this experiment with Lily. I kept my answers vague, not wanting to drag her into the mess, but I could tell she was curious. "You seem different lately," she said in one of our conversations. "More confident, I guess. Less hesitant." "Maybe I've just learned to stop overthinking things," I replied. She laughed, but it wasn't the light-hearted laugh I was used to. "Well, I hope you're looking out for yourself in all this." While I was reconnecting with Claire, Lily was busy throwing herself into her own explorations. She started dressing up more often, staying out later, and offering increasingly flimsy excuses for where she was going. At first, I let it slide. I had no interest in tracking her movements or asking too many questions. If this was what she wanted, I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to keep tabs on her. But then I noticed something strange. One night, Lily came home looking unusually anxious. She barely said a word to me, retreating to the bedroom without even glancing in my direction. When I passed by the room later, I heard her on the phone, her voice hushed and urgent. "Yeah, I don't know," she was saying. "He's been different. I think he's talking to someone, but he's not saying much about it. No, I don't think it's serious, but it's definitely weird." I stood there for a moment, listening to her fumble for words. It was almost laughable. Lily was the one who had pushed for an open marriage, yet now she was paranoid about me doing exactly what she'd wanted. The next morning, Lily's demeanor shifted. She was suddenly more attentive, asking me questions about my day, offering to cook dinner, even suggesting we watch a movie together. It was obvious what she was doing. She was trying to reassert control, to pull me back into her orbit before things spiraled out of her hands completely. I played along, not because I was fooled, but because I wanted to see how far she'd go. Meanwhile, Claire and I continued to talk. By this point, I had started to notice just how much more comfortable I felt around her than I did around Lily. Our conversations were honest, easy, and free of the manipulation and mind games that had come to define my interactions with my wife. And I knew it was driving Lily crazy. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, texting Claire about a new job opportunity she was considering, when Lily walked in. She hovered by the doorway, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. "Who are you texting?" she asked, her voice deceptively casual. "Claire," I said without hesitation. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You've been talking to her a lot lately." "She's your sister," I said with a shrug. "Why wouldn't I?" Lily didn't respond right away. Instead, she sat down across from me, her gaze sharp. "What are you two even talking about?" "Life," I said simply. "She's been going through some things. I'm just being a good brother-in-law." The way her jaw tightened told me she didn't believe me, but she didn't push the issue further. That weekend, Lily made a big show of planning a date night for the two of us. She booked a fancy restaurant, picked out my clothes, and acted like everything between us was perfectly fine. But even as we sat across from each other at the candlelit table, I could feel the undercurrent of tension. "So," she said, swirling her wine glass, "how do you think this whole open marriage thing is going?" The question caught me off guard, but I didn't let it show. "I think it's been eye-opening," I said. She tilted her head, studying me. "Eye-opening how?" "I think it's made me realize a lot about myself," I said, "and about what I want in a relationship." Lily's expression faltered for just a moment before she quickly recovered. "And what do you want?" I took a sip of my drink, letting the silence hang in the air for a moment. "I guess I want honesty. Clarity. A connection that doesn't feel so conditional." Her smile was tight, her eyes darting down to her plate. "Well," she said, forcing a laugh, "I'm glad you're getting something out of this." The rest of the evening passed in strained conversation, but I couldn't stop thinking about her reaction. She wasn't enjoying this experiment as much as she'd expected to, and it was clear that she hadn't anticipated the effect it would have on me or on her. By the time we got home, I knew the balance of power had shifted. Lily had pushed me to the edge, but now she was the one struggling to keep her footing. And I wasn't done yet. Lily's facade of control started to crack after that weekend. I could see it in the way she hovered whenever I was on my phone, the way her questions about Claire became sharper and more direct, and the way she suddenly seemed far less interested in her own exploration. At this point, I knew she was regretting the open marriage experiment. But I wasn't about to let her quietly back out of it without acknowledging what she'd done. She had been the one to push this idea, and now she was being forced to deal with the consequences. I wasn't intentionally trying to provoke Lily with my communication with Claire, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't see the effect it had on her. Every time my phone buzzed with a new message from Claire, Lily's eyes would dart toward the screen, her jaw tightening ever so slightly. "What are you two even talking about?" she finally asked one night, her tone sharp and accusatory. "Nothing important," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "She's asking for advice about her job again. She respects my opinion." Lily crossed her arms, her lips pressing into a thin line. "You know, it's weird how much you're texting her lately. Don't you think?" "I don't think it's weird at all," I said evenly. "She's your sister, Lily. We've always gotten along." "Yeah, but this is different," she said. "You're talking to her more than you're talking to me." The irony of her statement was almost laughable. "Maybe if you hadn't been spending so much time going out and exploring, you'd feel differently," I said. Her face flushed, and I knew I'd struck a nerve. The real turning point came a few days later. Claire had mentioned that she was looking for a new apartment and asked if I could help her check out some options. I didn't think much of it. I'd always been the type to help out family when I could, but when I casually mentioned it to Lily, she lost it. "You're going apartment hunting with her?" she asked, her voice rising. "She asked for my help," I said with a shrug. "I didn't think it was a big deal." "It is a big deal, Ethan," she snapped. "She's my sister, and it's not your job to swoop in and play hero every time she needs something." I raised an eyebrow. Since when is helping someone a bad thing? I thought we were allowed to explore connections. "This isn't the same, and you know it," Lily said, glaring at me. "I don't know anything of the sort," I replied, standing my ground. The tension reached a boiling point the day Claire and I actually went apartment hunting. It was a simple afternoon. checking out a few places, grabbing coffee afterward, and chatting about her plans for the future. But when I got home, Lily was waiting for me, her arms crossed and her expression thunderous. "How was your date?" she asked coldly. "Date?" I repeated, frowning. "It wasn't a date, Lily. I was helping your sister." "Don't play dumb, Ethan," she snapped. "You're spending way too much time with her, and it's inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" I said, incredulous. "Are you hearing yourself right now? You're the one who wanted an open marriage. You're the one who's been spending late nights with other people. But now, because I'm texting your sister and helping her out, it's suddenly a problem? This isn't what I meant when I suggested this," she yelled, her voice breaking. "What did you mean, Lily?" I shot back. "Did you mean that you wanted freedom for yourself, but expected me to sit at home and wait for you? Because that's exactly what it looks like." The argument spiraled from there. Lily tried to paint herself as the victim, accusing me of using her sister to get back at her and claiming that I was disrespecting our marriage. I countered with the truth, that she had been the one to push for an open marriage, that she had been the one to initiate this mess, and that she had no right to act outraged now that things weren't going her way. By the end of the argument, it was clear that there was no coming back from this. The trust between us had been completely eroded, and neither of us was willing to back down. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I told him everything that had happened, Lily's proposal, her actions during the 2 weeks, and the fallout from my communication with Claire. He listened carefully, then gave me a plan for how to move forward. "This isn't going to be easy," he said, "but if you want out, we can make it happen." "I want out," I said firmly. Lily, of course, didn't take the news well. When I told her I wanted a divorce, she tried every tactic in the book, begging, crying, accusing me of being the one who ruined our marriage. "You can't leave me over this," she sobbed. "I was just trying to fix us." "Fix us?" I repeated, my voice cold. "You destroyed us, Lily. The moment you decided that our marriage wasn't enough for you, you made your choice. And now I'm making mine." As I moved forward with the divorce process, Lily's regret became more and more obvious. She tried to backtrack, saying the open marriage had been a mistake, and that she wanted to rebuild what we had. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and there was no repairing what she'd broken. The decision to divorce Lily was both liberating and devastating. After 12 years of marriage, I had never imagined we'd end up here, but the events of the past few weeks had made it painfully clear that there was no going back. The trust we once had was shattered, and no amount of apologies or promises could fix it. Lily didn't take the news well. In the days following our argument, she alternated between trying to guilt me into staying and blaming me for the state of our marriage. "I only wanted to make things better," she sobbed one night. "I thought this would help us reconnect. By asking for an open marriage?" I replied, my voice calm but firm. "You didn't want to reconnect, Lily. You wanted freedom for yourself. You didn't think about how it would affect me or what it would do to us." Her tears didn't move me. I had already made up my mind, and nothing she said could change it. The divorce process was messy, as I'd expected it would be. Lily tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming that I'd abandoned her and that my connection with Claire had been inappropriate. Of course, my lawyer was ready for this. We had documentation of everything, from Lily's initial proposal for an open marriage to the conversations and activities she'd engaged in during those 2 weeks. Claire, bless her, even offered to provide statements confirming that our conversations had been entirely above board. The evidence spoke for itself. The court saw through Lily's attempts to shift blame, and in the end, the division of assets heavily favored me. But even though the legal battle was a win, it didn't feel like a victory. Once the divorce was finalized, I found myself standing in the empty shell of what used to be our life together. The house, though technically mine now, felt like a monument to everything we'd lost. Every room held memories of better times. Times when I thought we were unbreakable, when I believed Lily and I would grow old together. But those memories were tainted now, overshadowed by the betrayal and the bitterness that had consumed the final weeks of our marriage. I sold the house not long after the divorce was finalized. It was too big, too quiet, and too full of ghosts. I moved into a smaller place closer to work, a place that didn't carry the weight of our shared past. As for Claire, she kept her distance after the divorce. Though we'd become close during those tumultuous weeks, she made it clear that she didn't want to be a source of conflict between me and Lily. "You deserve a fresh start," she told me in one of our final conversations. "And I think I need one too." I respected her decision, even though it hurt to lose the one person who had been a source of support during such a difficult time. The months that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Divorce is never easy, but the circumstances surrounding mine made it even more painful. Friends and family had questions I didn't always feel like answering. Some of them took Lily's side, believing her version of events or simply refusing to get involved. But the hardest part was the loneliness. For years, I'd built my life around Lily, and now, without her, I felt adrift. Work helped to fill the void, but it couldn't erase the emptiness I felt when I came home to an empty apartment at the end of the day. Looking back, I can see that Lily's proposal for an open marriage was a symptom of something deeper, a disconnect that had been building between us for years. I don't blame her entirely for what happened, but I also know that her actions were selfish and short-sighted. She thought she could have it all: freedom without consequences, exploration without accountability. And when she realized she couldn't, she tried to shift the blame onto me. But actions have consequences, and Lily had to face hers. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's the importance of knowing your own worth. For too long, I let Lily's needs and desires take precedence over my own. I ignored the warning signs, convinced myself that her happiness was more important than my own, and tried to rationalize her behavior even when it hurt me. Never again. As for Lily, I hear bits and pieces about her through mutual friends. She's struggling, trying to rebuild her life while grappling with the fallout of her decisions. Part of me feels sorry for her, but another part of me knows that she brought this on herself. I don't know what the future holds for me, but I do know this: I'll never let anyone make me feel less than I am again. And if Lily regrets her actions for the rest of her life, well, that's not my burden to carry.